with this panel, the United Kingdom of Hard Dance Music, and I'm joined here by 4 people who know everything about it. From left to right, Mark E.G., Ed Reel from Trackitdown, Gavin Davies from Bionic Agency, and John Walker. Is that the right order?
That would be the one. Yeah.
From Radio 1? No. Yeah, you're Gavin. I know that. Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. Thank you.
I want to be Gavin Davies for a second.
Maybe we can start with each of you telling us where you think the hard dance stands at the moment in the United Kingdom and what your position is in it. Mark.
Yeah, I'm quite an unconventional kind of hard dance DJ, producer, whatever you want to call it. Just purely, I think, because I play quite a range of hard dance music, whether that be hard style, the new sound of the tougher sound of hard trance, the shrans, the hard techno. I kind of play different styles to suit different clubs, and that I believe is my strength. And I think all of those different styles at the moment in the UK are they're strong. I think that the UK's strength is variety in music, which is very, very important, and I believe that should continue. So yeah, that's where I believe hard dance is what I'm doing. But of course I would think that because that's my mission.
But you're doing okay. You're doing well.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, the economy in the UK is definitely going through the same problems as the rest of Europe, the rest of the world. And yeah, you know, things are going okay for me purely because I'm quite diverse in what I do. But I do notice that certain scenes, be it the hardstyle scene, the techno scene, whatever, is having to rein itself in quite a bit at the moment to deal with the economic stress, the fact that people can't afford to pay big money to come out, and if they are paying big money to come out to a club, then they're saving up. Which means that the smaller clubs, which I believe is where the UK's strength is, in the smaller clubs, the clubs that nurture new music, because that's what, for me, the UK is all about. Those kind of clubs are definitely suffering, but you know, it's all about understanding what the UK is, what it stands for, and how we're going to get around the problems. So things are good at the moment. Yes, good.
Okay, well, we'll get into detail more about what you've been talking about. Gavin from Bionic Agency.
Yes. Yeah.
Please tell us where do you think the scene stands and what your position is in it right now?
The UK scene it is struggling at the moment. It is hard work. There aren't as many big events as there were going back 4 or 5 years ago. The events that are actually running, they're not running.
Please talk into
sorry,
closer.
They're not running as frequently as they used to. People are, as Mark said, the clubbers now they're picking and choosing events that they're going to. They're not going out as frequently. They're having to save money to be able to go out, and it is tough times from an agency and also from an event point of view. The running of the events, because I book a lot of the DJs as well as then looking after DJs for other club events. But it is very tough at the moment.
And do you put on your own events, or?
Yeah, Bionic run events. We've won Best Event at the Hard Dance Awards for the last 2 years, but also then they've been running for 11 years. I've worked with them for the past 5 years, and in that time I've seen numbers go down by about a third, I think, average attendance numbers. So it's things have been better. I'm sure in other countries around the world as well. However, with the UK being as strong as it was years ago, it's difficult at the moment.
And is that something you can agree with, Ed, from Trackitdown.com?
Yes, certainly. I think on the face of it, the club end of things is in a state of flux at the moment, and that's unfortunate, and it's for a number of reasons. I think the economy is obviously the number one reason. We have I think possibly 20% of all young people between the age of 18 and 24 are now unemployed in the United Kingdom, and that's sort of nearly the same as places like Spain and where you hear a lot about kind of their economic woes. But the thing about the United Kingdom is a hotbed of creativity.
Sorry, Ed.
A little bit of beatboxing there. The UK is a hotbed of creativity, and basically the people in Great Britain do flourish in the face of adversity, and certainly as a retailer of music, I think the range of new artists and new record labels and new music in the realm of the harder styles, not just hard style, but hardcore and hard house and hard dance. It's great. And what I'm kind of thinking is, yes, people who are now able to produce music in their bedroom, the actual production of music has been democratized, because now you don't need a lot of money or a big computer system or a big studio. You can make beats at home very, very simply. And perhaps I'd like to think that if some people can't afford to go to the rave every weekend, they can stay at home and they're making beats, and they're the passion is still there. It's just
and still feel involved.
Yeah. So I think there's certainly no shortage of music being delivered to us, and I think it still means that the United Kingdom and the networks that record labels and producers have from the United Kingdom, with people around the world, it still means that there is a scene, and it's just having a little bit of a rest because it's skint.
Yeah.
And you were here last year as well. Are things worse now than they were last year?
We're going, I think, I employ 11 people in my small business, and I think we are in for a very long winter in the United Kingdom, and certainly I think it is the confidence that people lack in the United Kingdom, because you just need to turn on the television or read the newspaper or what have you, and just be told that everything is gonna dry up and whatnot. And so, if people have money, they're just holding on to it, and that makes everything very difficult, because you need to have the machine, working in order for people to keep in business. So.
Well, I admire all of your positivity, but it does sound a bit grim, coming from the three of you.
I'll put a positive spin on it. Don't worry, I've been waiting for my turn.
John, and you're in public broadcasting. You have a different perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ed did it the nail on the head with that. You turn on the news, you read the newspapers, and it sends you under. So I just don't do it anymore. It's just the easy way out of it. But yeah, I'm not a producer and I'm not a club promoter, and they are the guys that are kind of really suffering at the moment for kind of obvious reasons. But as a club DJ, and I've got a show on Radio 1 on a Friday night, which covers like the full range of dance music, basically, of the harder styles, from like hard style, hardcore, even some of the old school rave stuff. And I see a really encouraging side to that it's an interesting one, because there's a lot of people that are kind of, in their 30s and beyond, that listen to the show, that kind of forgot that the music existed, and they used to really like it when they were younger. And, they're kind of like, wow, I forgot this was going, I forgot how much I liked it. And people are really interacting with it, but they're not going to the clubs. And, they're still liking the music, and I think that's one thing in the UK that we need to kind of capitalise, because there's a big percentage of people that really like the music and, you know, kind of love the scene and the heritage that went with it, and we need to kind of get them back out in the clubs a bit. But it has been a tough summer with the recession and stuff, but I think that that's kind of, you know, a sum of the recession, people saving money to go to festivals, and I think, you know, overall the festivals in the UK did pretty well this year, and, you know, certainly good atmosphere as always with the people that did attend, and people going on holiday, of course, you know, you've got to save money to go on holiday, so it has been, you know, some of the club numbers have really been down throughout the summer, which has been a tough time. But then I've been speaking to a lot of DJs across all different styles, you know, house and trance as well in the UK, and over the last 3 or 4 weeks there's, you know, clubs that have been selling out, you know, 1,000 plus people, you know, kind of from old school nights to, you know, Dutch hardcore nights in Scotland. You know, I played one that was, you know, at the Arches in Glasgow, and people were queuing around the block. And one of the things with that is, normally they have these big lineups with loads of people, and it's quite expensive to get the tickets. With it was just me, Martin Obsession, Neophyte, and a couple of local guys, and it was £10 a ticket to get in, and they were literally queuing around the block and turning people away. So I think, you know, it's kind of, that is a reflection of the money situation, but I think as well it's kind of a good reflection of, you know, it's not that the scene's dying out or people don't want to go to the music or, you know, aren't into the events anymore. It's just kind of, it's just the price point with it.
Pitch it right, haven't you?
Yeah. And I do think with it, you know, it's kind of that now people aren't saving for holidays and, you know, kind of going to festivals and stuff. I'm hoping that the numbers are, you know, going to pick back up again with the clubs, because the vibe that I'm getting from people is very positive.
But do you also think there's a growth market in the older raver?
I'd like to think so, and I am trying to think of a way to kind of like how you could capitalise on it.
Because
I don't know,
they may
is it
have
going to be running an over 30?
They have a job,
like
and
happy hardcore or something
Saga
to get them all
raves.
out. Yeah. So yeah, maybe that is what we need to be doing, kind of an OAP Ravers Club or something. Discount cards.
These are the people who still earn a wage.
I think the most important people that we have to think about are the new breed and the new breed of producers. I mean, we obviously an old school night is always fantastic, but I think that again, what I was saying before, is one of the strengths of the UK is the sheer amount of talent that we have, and the ability to think out of a box, which unfortunately a lot of countries are forced to think in the box. I believe anyway that music, a lot of the companies can do the big events, the large events, that's fine, but what they're playing on is fashion, and eventually that will die. Whatever is big and well known will eventually die, and I think that nurturing the new talent, the new breed, creating more networks in the UK for that. I'm speaking to a lot of people here today who really do believe the same. I think a lot of you probably in this room will think the same, that there are people who want to change the way that the music is right now as far as hard dance goes, and it's up to you people to become part of your own little network, brush yourselves up, try and compete with the big guys.
So on the one hand, you want to nurture new talent, and on the other hand, it's hard to maintain the scene as it is, and you need established names maybe to keep things going.
Well, absolutely, and I think that is a big problem for promoters over in the UK, because the promoters have to pay, they have to get the numbers through the door, and they have to pay the big Dutch wages for, especially you will know as a hardstyle person, the big Dutch wages for the big Dutch DJs, but they simply can't afford it. So my theory is to nurture new people more, and actually a funny thing is that is now happening in the UK, simply because the promoters cannot afford the top wages. They're having to book the lesser known DJs.
That's correct.
So take us on that, I think, really. Let us know a bit more about that, Gav.
Yeah, well, over the past few years, with the pound against the euro, as it was going back a few years ago, when booking a DJ, if it's say €3,000, that might have been £2,000. With the way with the currency conversion now, a DJ at €3,000 is actually £3,000 to us in the UK. And what we're finding now is that rather than going for the biggest of the big guys and then having to charge top ticket prices, which then people aren't necessarily paying, as John mentioned, trying to get the balance of lineup that's exciting, that has the international guests, but also at the same time isn't expensive on the pocket, and is good for the clubber. But with some of the DJ fees that are that you have to pay, it makes it very difficult.
Are there any European DJs who are willing to take a lesser fee to play in the UK?
Yes. I won't mention individual names, but there are a few, and the people who have done that have been rewarded with lots of bookings. Yeah, they get, as well as the club events, they get the festivals, and if we're prepared to offer a few gigs a year rather than 1 gig a year, 1 gig every 18 months.
So it could be in their own interest.
Yeah, exactly. And there aren't many DJs, I don't think, that have got a full diary, apart from maybe some of the top internationals who are travelling the world. A lot of them probably do have gaps in their diary, and to be able to strike a deal and get 3 gigs in a 12-month period in the UK, I'm sure a lot of artists would be happy with that.
I think it's worth saying as well, kind of off Gav's point with that, like when hardstyle first really blew up in the UK, obviously, it was a new style of music over here, and UK hard house was the dominant force. And the guys, that were obviously getting big money out in Europe for playing it, the ones that decided to kind of take a hit on the fee and play in the UK, they were the first guys to come over from Holland and play hardstyle, and they're still perceived now to be the legends of the scene. So it's, I think it's, kind of them guys have been rewarded certainly over the years, definitely.
Yeah, I find that with my own bookings in England is, obviously with these doing a lot of deals, I tend to get some nice work, and that keeps me happy,
I think we can all learn from that. John, as a radio DJ, do you think you have an extra responsibility to nurture the local scene?
Yeah, it's definitely, there is that case with it and stuff. I mean, as from a musical point of view, I try and, first priority is to take where the music's from out of the equation, and it's so it's always good music first, because I am fighting a battle to a certain extent where it's, there's every type of music that's covered on Radio 1 is publicly accepted, and I'm kind of the black sheep as it is, so I need to represent the best music. So it's no good just playing music to help people out. It has to be the finest showcase of our scene on an international level as well. But it's definitely, something that, I'm always kind of giving feedback to producers that are, kind of sending stuff through that. And, I don't think it's any secret that the level of production on the Dutch stuff has traditionally been a lot higher than what we've been doing in the UK. But I'm starting to notice a shift with the guys that are sending stuff through, and it's it's a cool tune, but it just doesn't quite stand up there. There's a lot of people that now it's I'm starting to get stuff, and it's wow, this is par for par. And then there's a lot of interest even from international DJs that are starting to play their stuff, like the Quarantine Boys and stuff. They've built their own culture and their own crew around it, their own parties, their own production and DJs, and they've almost built their own scene. And it's I'm supporting them guys' stuff because it's not out of a token or kind of a rub on the head because they're from the UK. Their music is standing up with it, and I think that is the exciting thing, because it's if you do kind of throw people a bone too much, then it's not the incentive to be there. Whereas realistically, if you want to compete in the hardstyle scene or hardcore scene in Europe, your stuff's got to be as good, and it's getting to the point that now it is really getting there with a lot of young producers in the UK.
John, I agree with you absolutely, but I also think that it's very difficult for UK producers to present their music to places that do not think out of a box. And the UK has been very good, as I said earlier, thinking out of that box. And it is very difficult. The level of production might be great, but how, as a UK artist, are you going to get your style noticed in countries such as Holland, Germany?
Yeah, I do speak to a lot of young guys, and I am, kind of surprised. It's I hear a track from and I say, oh, wow, that's really good. Kind of, have you sent it to anybody out in Holland? And then they are saying, oh, yeah, I've had really positive feedback from, and then, X, Y, Z, some big names on the scene. So it's I think, to the credit of DJs internationally, they are listening to the stuff. But I mean, there's a guy from the UK, DJ Yoz, that's just been signed to Dutch Masterworks in Holland. So it's kind of, his hard work and effort over the years. I mean, at first his production wasn't up to the standard of it, and now it is. It really, really is just as good. And it's now he is being rewarded of it. So I think it's kind of...
We just need more of that, don't we?
Yeah, I think it is getting there. It's that's what I'm saying is, it's completely... It's on point. It's getting there.
Yes.
I can also imagine if the economic times are pretty hard, that people will try and push for a more commercial sound, trying to get in more revenue.
No, I think
is that happening?
The other way.
Yeah, I think basically one of the upsides of the turmoil that has really sort of made people in the different regions of the United Kingdom sort of go and just make raw music. They because the commercial incentive now is less, because you're not going to sell 10,000 downloads or what have you. People are now just going and they're making the music that they want to make, and they're fusing different styles together. And the UK for the last 20 years has always been a creative hotbed of different groups of producers in different parts of the UK, and the people in the southwest of the UK make their own sound that's totally different to the people in the north, in the Midlands, and that's so exciting. And I don't really think there is probably anywhere comparable in the world as a country where there is such diversity, and from that you get a lot of stuff, but it only takes kind of one thing to really sort of stick and capture the imagination and capture the moment, and then you've got international attention, and you've got it's good times again.
I think one of the things about the UK is the fact that there's so many cities with so many different types of scenes, and that is what fuels this kind of new sound.
It's a lot more diverse. It's on a lot more of a smaller scale. Kind of in Holland, the way that I perceive it from outside of the Netherlands is, you have obviously a very dominant promoter. You basically have, obviously the common sense is if you want to, have a career in dance music, you aspire to achieve one of the 8 slots on the main stage, and that is it. That is, the holy grail. That's your journey. In the UK, you've probably got, 10 cities, all with their own scene, all with their own sound, all with their own groups of producers and promoters and stuff like that. And it's, people aren't aspiring to just, be one of 8 people on the main stage at DEFCON 1. They're like doing it because they love it.
Yeah, that is a huge difference. And
I think it makes things
Are
very
you saying
creative,
that people are not doing it because they love it over here?
I think they're doing it because they love it over here, but certainly I think, there is obviously a remarkable difference, I think, perhaps in the approach. The Dutch are we're sitting here in this most amazing office, and we're privileged to see such professional people who, for them the hard dance music and promotion and stuff like that is a career path. How amazing to think, I can become I can work for a company like ID&T, and I can be doing this for the rest of my life, and evolving as a career person. In the UK, it's a bit more rough around the edges. You're kind of doing it for the heck of it. You're doing it because it's.
But Ed, if we could turn that round, can you imagine the power if we introduced more professionalism into the way people work?
But we're a funny little island full of funny little people who love to have a scrap, basically.
But it is kind of worth noting with that is we did have that kind of with the hard house scene 10 years ago. I mean, hard house, it was like this world-dominating sound, of the DJs were everywhere. It's almost comparable now to what kind of the European market is with hardstyle. Definitely. It was like that, Australia, all these different places, it was UK hard house that was demanded everywhere, and it's things change, like you said, things come in and out of fashion.
Absolutely, it would be very interesting to hear in 5 or 10 years' time, whether there's been a reverse again. And certainly when I had my record label Nucleus Records, and I was coming to Holland and playing hard house at Dance Valley and HQ and all these places around Holland and Germany and stuff like that. It was the headliners were people coming over from the UK, and it's kind of, that was great while it lasted, but to be honest, it's good to see that the Dutch people have seized the day, and now they're the biggest export, and I just think it's just the way of the world, isn't it? It's cycles, it's good.
But they've really capitalised on being professional. They
that's the
really have,
and
we one of the things that I noticed was with the social networking is image is everything. I mean, at one stage I did not care. It did not matter what my image was. But then you start to realise, especially as years, I've worked as a magazine editor, and I've been involved in obviously record labels and trying to sell music. You do then realise that there does come a time when you really have to grow up and design stuff properly, make your image good.
Absolutely, and I think looking at people like Headhunters and the really successful Dutch artists, it is such a professional and creative development of an artist that really if you would do the same for someone in the more commercial sphere, because that is the right way to do it. And certainly all credit to Scantrax and Q-Dance and everyone for absolutely sitting down, I hope, and saying, how are we going to do this right? And the results speak for themselves, don't they?
So why doesn't the UK have these kind of people? The UK has a huge music industry.
That's right. And there are definitely sectors of the electronic music business where that does occur. We have a big sort of trance artists or techno artists or house artists.
It's happening in dubstep at the moment, really. With UK.
Where there is management and PR and stylists and all that sort of stuff. The beauty of UK hard music is it's raw. I think just the raw. People are making tough beats. They're going, really kind of wearing their heart on their sleeve, and there is definitely. There have been bigger organisations in the past when where there were opportunities to tick the boxes of publicity and so on, but really the UK scene in the hard end of the spectrum really sort of just is raw, and I think that's it.
And I get a sense that you kind of maybe prefer it that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Yeah, I think though if we can strike the balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way for obviously the incredible work that has gone into the hard style people in Holland and stuff like that, because really it is a textbook way of how to develop someone's career and then reap the rewards from that. But it's I would definitely if I was managing a young artist, I would definitely take a leaf from the book, as we say in the UK, and really sort of just see how the social networking, the communication, the music production and promotion and marketing has been handled so professionally, because it really, that's why Headhunters and D Block and Estefan and Brennan Hart and all these people are so successful, because it's been done properly.
And Gavin, do you agree with that you maybe prefer a little bit the small scale business in the UK, or do you aspire to a building like this for Bionic?
Oh, it definitely aspire to the events on the scale of ID&T, the Q parties, etc. I can't imagine something like that in the UK, to be honest. The UK is about the smaller parties, more of an underground scene. For the hard dance, the hard style, it isn't quite as commercially as.
It's just different. It is different, isn't it? The UK has been about clubs, which are a breeding ground for new sounds. It's a fast evolution of the music, and because it is a small hubs of people, it's just feeding off of each other. Whereas over here, it's not necessarily been about the clubs. Traditionally, it's been about the big spectacular parties, and it is amazing to see. But it is just different. I think culturally different, the way that the scene in the UK and the scene in Holland, in particular, has operated.
But Gavin, what do you think a company like Bionic could learn from the way it's been done here?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that could be learnt from a company like Q and the way and ID&T, the way they go about things. I'd like to think that I'm professional and Bionic in the way that we run things already, and that's obviously reflected in the awards that we've won. However, to take it to that next level would be great, but I just couldn't see it happening.
It would almost ruin what's so great about the UK.
I was just about to say with that, really, kind of to Gav's credit, like there's a lot of people that are really prepared to slash their fee for what they're getting, you know, out at some massive festivals in Europe to go and play, you know, to 700-800 people in South Wales, because once you've played there and you see the atmosphere, and that is the key difference.
That is the key difference.
You know, it's like first time, you know, I played out in Europe and that, I was really worried that it didn't go so well, because I was used to having people like with their tops off going crazy
I had exactly
and screaming and staggering, and then you realise it's only when you kind of go around the world and see it that it's just, that's unique to the UK, and it's passion. So, you know, maybe it's, you know, as much as, you know, it's amazing to go and see these amazing shows and everything, and it's, you know, the full production that's amazing, but as a DJ, it's kind of, a lot of people are prepared to, you know, slash their fee because they just want to go and expose themselves to a new audience and have like
expose
700
themselves
people.
to Welsh maniacs. Exactly, danger.
And it's like, and
I wouldn't go exposing yourself to any Welsh people this afternoon.
We won't give any names either.
You can't put a price on 700 Welsh nutters, right?
No, I mean, it really, if you guys haven't, you're Dutch or wherever you're from, and you haven't experienced the UK atmosphere, you really do have to. I think it's pretty legendary.
If you don't mind sweat dripping from the roof and stuff like that.
How do you think the music, how it's been developing in the UK compares to how it's been done in Europe?
Well, that's actually quite easy. I think things become very formulated very quickly. I think people take a certain style of music and tend to milk it. And
are you talking about the UK now, or
no? In a lot of Europe,
yes.
And you know, I can see why people would do that, and you know, good luck to them. But for me, and what I see as being great about the UK is definitely discovering the new music. And Ed touched on the Southwest. They've really brushed up their sound, and I'm pointing at you, Luke, because you're a big producer down there. And I think that, you know, this kind of music for me is when one thing goes down, something needs to come up from underneath. Everything goes in cycles, and I think that Southwest sound is definitely going to be the cycle that comes up.
Can you explain for the people who are not maybe as much up to what's going on in Southwest? Can you explain a little bit what's going on there? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's really born out of when hard trance was really big in obviously 2000. In fact, it was actually probably quite big down there when EDM, Tunnel Records, that kind of thing was happening in the 90s. But yeah, that kind of sound was extremely popular down there, to the point that, you know, I was down there 5 times a weekend playing different parties. They were all rammed out. 1,000 people, 2,000 people each party, and they had a real passion for hard trance music, and hardstyle came along, and a lot of them, a lot of people could not relate to that, but obviously hardstyle has become so massively popular that it has taken over, to a certain extent, the planet as far as hard dance goes. But the Southwest kind of has created a reaction against that, an almost anarchic, like, well, we're going to do what we're going to do kind of sound, and it's just toughening up the old hard trance sound. Very fresh, very new level of production, using all the tricks that are now available that weren't available 10 years ago. So definitely something to keep your eye on in the future.
Well, the UK music scene, of course, has a reputation for nurturing small scenes, and then they expand into worldwide pop music, as it has happened with dubstep, for example.
Well, definitely. Is there
potential for hard dance music to do that as well?
Without a shadow of a doubt, and I expect that to happen. You know, I am constantly looking for new networks of people that believe in something fresh and something new. I mean, we've now, obviously, because you're from hardstyle promoter Bionic, you know, we've also got to talk about Shran's music in the UK. People like instigator, who are, believing in a brand new sound, and it's really capturing the imagination of people who are looking for something fresh and different within the hard dance community. Shran's music, again, is raw music, and it's really connecting with a lot of people in the UK at the moment. It just needs the top people in Shran's to understand the UK market, to reduce their prices a little bit, and then it's theirs for the taking.
You guys agree?
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of the UK scene. Whether people are making raw, melodic, hard trance, techno hybrids in the southwest, or they're making Scouse House in Liverpool, or Gabba techno in Newcastle. There is, a hotbed of activity in many different places in the UK. And when I had my hard house record label, Nucleus Records, at the end of the 90s and the start of the year 2000 and so on, that we were flying all over the world, performing at the world's biggest raves, and that came from one club, Trade in London, which was basically 800, 900, 1,000 people every Sunday morning, and it just went in the space of a year, 2 years to just taking over the planet for a period of time, and then obviously things moved on. But that will happen again, and it will happen whether it's drum and bass or dubstep or techno or yodeling folk or what have you. The thing is people in the United Kingdom, when they're passionate about something, they just live it and breathe it, and they want to share it.
Whether it's an economic downtime or not.
Absolutely, and obviously social networking, allows. I mean, Luke and the guys in the southwest of the UK, they are very well connected with an Australian scene. So there are, there's a lot of cross-pollination between emerging Australian producers who are really exciting, who are certainly feeding off, the stuff that's happening in the UK. There's people from the Ukraine, there's people from Canada, and the internet has allowed a much quicker cycle of inspiration. So it's exciting.
One thing I'd like to say as well, speaking to a lot of Dutch people here today, and obviously on the internet, is I think they are looking for change. I think they really want it, and I believe that the UK is the place to find it.
Absolutely, I would. You never know what's going to be around the corner, and something like dubstep is a prime example. Some 16-year-old kids in Croydon, which is a really sort of rubbish part of London, basically, slowing down music and getting rid of, slowing down hip-hop and adding drum and bass sounds. And, a month or so ago, we had a dubstep #1 single and a dubstep #1 album, and, it's just come from nowhere.
And Jay-Z has dubstep on his album.
Absolutely, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's worth going back to the point, about saying whether hard music can have that commercial explosion in the UK. And I absolutely think, genuinely, 100% it can, just purely because it's a lot of people think dubstep, it kind of bubbling under about 3 years ago, and now it's, exploded. But it hasn't. It's like a lot of my friends were in the scene down in London in like 2001, 2002, and you've never heard such raw underground music. It was literally horrible, the least commercially acceptable music, with kind of like, and then that was when it was a big grime scene with the MCs over the top of it, talking about robbing people's houses and stabbing people. It was honestly the least kind of, and it was, again, like the kind of the UK rave scene, it was just purely underground. Nobody gave a, the artists didn't give a shit about anything. Exactly. They were just doing what they were doing. And then you look 10 years later, and the sounds evolved and adapted, and now it's national playlist on the radio in the day. It's #1 in the charts. These guys are going out for £10,000+, all around the UK, America, all over the world, constantly on tour. And that came from this horrible, dirty underground music that's so unacceptable to people that went in the scene. And it's like, kind of when you look at hardstyle, started off really kind of dark underground. Now it's got more melodic, and people can relate to it a lot easier and stuff. And with the big parties, when it's getting the exposure, I just think it just takes one track, literally one track that could get daytime playlist radio. People kind of go, I don't know what hardstyle is, but I like that song. And it's just the whole thing could just spawn so quickly.
There's actually the whole acid techno scene, the Chris Liberator, Dave the drummer scene, it was obviously from the squat party scene, was a very grimy, disgusting, late night Monday morning.
We're not selling the UK well here, are we?
We're doing such a great job.
But it's great!
It rains too.
I'd like to open up the floor for questions, please, for any of these guys. Anyone?
Anything.
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 Expose yourself to a Welshie.
Do you also think we have a positive future in the UK?
Do we have a
Positive future in the UK?
Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited about his future. I think for exactly the reasons that we've just been talking about. These reasons will be the strength of the UK for as long as music exists in the UK, because of the sheer diversity of cultures and music, and we need to embrace it.
Yeah, believe it or not, the recession will pass at some point, and it's like, the market will pick up again, and it's, the UK's always had a strong underground dance music scene, so I think, definitely positive in the long run.
Gavin?
Yeah, I believe that it will, that things will get better. Yeah, as John says, but I think that at the moment, from a Bionic point of view, we're now having to make sure we cut our cloth accordingly, as such. We're, like we mentioned about the DJ fees, etc., that for us to still be around in another 10 years, there are certain things we've got to do. And looking after acts like Luke and bringing people through instead, maybe not booking as many international artists at the moment, is, looking after our own.
All right. If there's anyone else? No? Yeah?
In what way is it possible to get your events around the globe, not just doing it in the UK, but also doing it in other countries? Are there possibilities? Or?
I think you have to have, again, going back to Headhunters and Q-Dance, you have to have a great event brand, and you have to have some really great artists that are, kind of ambassadors for, your style and, the events that you do. And certainly, historically, when you have great artists making music and a really strong brand, whether it be a record label or a party or something like that, then you have an opportunity to export the whole thing.
Yeah, I think Alex Kidd's done a good job of it as well. Like, in places like Australia, where he's got his Kidfectious brand, and he was already strong as a DJ there. But what he did is, he'd be saying to promoters, he'd be going, listen, I'm coming out to play, but for no extra cost, I'll bring the decor and, make it a Kidfectious night, or maybe throw in another one of his, up-and-coming artists and stuff. And literally, he's done it, kind of like guerrilla tactics to go in there to get it, and then, people know the brand and the name and stuff. And I think, especially like, with social networking and stuff, and, YouTube's obviously the killer. If you run a party like DEF CON, if people like hardstyle, it doesn't matter where in the world they are, they're going to see that and go, I want that, and enough people want it, then they can export. So, it's kind of the two ways to do it. You can either go in subversively and do it, or, if you're just so dominant in the territory that you are, people will find out about it in new territories and want it too.
Listen, I don't mean to be a pain up the ass, but my flight leaves in half an hour.
No, we're finished now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.